Hello everyone, my name is Owen, and welcome to Golden Isles. After Nintendo announced New Horizons 3.0 update just out of nowhere, me and many other people have been inspired to get back into Animal Crossing again. And what better way to do that than sharing some building tips? I've spent a decent amount of time playing this game, and I've certainly learned a few things while designing my islands over the years, so I thought I'd share them today. Without further ado, let's get into it. Alright, this first tip is going to be using some plant items to add some diversity to the vegetation on your island. Of course, things like trees, plants, and flowers are all really good for adding some of that to your natural spaces, but also keep in mind there's some great items like pine trees, decayed trees, boabs, wheat fields, cactuses, mush items, as well as that silent princess that was shown off in the 3.0 trailer that could all potentially be really good for decorating those natural spaces. Also, the potted plants are also really good potentially. Of course, with those, if it is a really natural area, you don't want that pot showing. There's some ways to hide it, like hiding it behind cliffs, like I have here with my cacao tree and Schefflera in the back there. Or if you get real creative with it and have the right angle, you can use items as well. Things like stone tablets, barrels, fences, stone lion dogs all work really great. I use this tip a lot, especially on my jungle islands, just to add a little bit of diversity and mix things up with what I have going on. For tip number 2, this one's for everyone like myself who has always wanted bridges that can go over land gaps in this game. They've never done it. I don't think they ever will, so this is what I found to be the next best thing, and that's using castle arches to make bridges like this where you can hop over the top and also go down below. They look great, they're really good for mobility. I've added ladders to this one for that extra just way to get around the island. I use this one all over the place. I have another one over here in front of my residential services. But instead of having a ladder, this time I use a bridge to get up into the middle. I've incorporated other castle items into this one in just the same way. I can hop over the top, go below, and it just looks really good. As well as castle items, I think other arches could potentially work, like plaza arches and frozen arches, as well as the ruined arches, as I've used over here. Of course, with these, there is that little gap you get between each arch, unlike the castle items, which perfectly fit together, but you can cover it up with things like the pillars. I've done it with trees before as well. This is one I've used on so many of my islands at this point. I just can't get enough of it. I think they look great, it's effective, and it's a perfect substitution. This next tip isn't a tip as much as it is just a reminder that the floating block items exist in this game. You can do some cool things with these, like creating archways. I've done this before for one of my entrances on a winter island, which was a toy store. I used some cube lights on top to make one of my favorite entrances I've ever done. Along with that, you can place them behind tall objects to make it look like there's things on top of there. Of course, with this, you do have to be careful about angles if you don't want that block being seen. Just have to get a little creative with that. These can also be used to make some decent looking roofs for fake buildings. I've done it before with the storefronts. And then I also just noticed today while I was filming setting this up that it works really well with the medieval building sides. That lines up really well with the top there. I'd imagine the castle items also work really well with this. While I plan to do a separate video about interior decoration, I thought I'd also mention here they can work as shelves inside as well. Of course, you can't put anything under them since there is items on top. But if you get creative, you can add some wall items below it to kind of fill that space. This next tip is about what's sitting right next to me, and that's dropped items. Of course, when I'm talking about dropped items, I'm referring to things like lost items, fruits, vegetables, crafting material, tickets, anything that you can just grab out of your inventory and just hit drop item, place it on the ground. This is really good for adding a little bit of variety to just the normal items you place. This is really the only example I have on my island right now, but there is some other ones I've done it on, especially on my sports island. I did it a bunch, such as using a gold ornament as a tennis ball on my tennis court, a pearl as a golf ball on my golf course, and for my swimming pool I've used other colored ornaments as lane dividers, and one that's outside of that sports island I did was a snowman building area where I used carrots, tree branches, and iron as different parts you'd use to build a snowman. These are all really good items for just adding a little variety if normal items just aren't doing it for you. Another thing, like the dropped items that get forget often, is the sea creatures, fish, and bugs, which all can be used for decorating as well. My absolute favorite of these is the seaweed, which is great for decorating beaches if you're like me and never know how to decorate your beaches. This can be a good way to do it. Just grab some and throw it down wherever. Along with the seaweed, there are some other creatures that do appear with no containers, such as one I have here, the horseshoe crab. And then in addition to that one, there's also the snapping turtle and the spider crab, which also appear with no container. Along with these creatures that come outside of a container, there are some that are in a container that still look really nice, like a couple of the sea creatures that come in this yellow crate. And similarly, there's a couple fish that come in a similar crate but in blue, like the nibblefish and mitten crab. And then also with the fish, you have the goldfish, which come in that really nice looking porcelain bowl. And then for bugs, you also have a really nice blue bucket that you get for some of the bugs that live in the water, as well as that upside down cup for things like the flea and the ant. And then there's also the crickets, which come in a tan cage, which can be really nice looking as well. Another small note with the crickets is that they do make a little bit of sound whenever you're near them. So if you're looking for a little extra ambience for your island, this could be a good way to add it. We're going to rapid fire off basically 4 tips here all at once, but they're all related to trees, so we're going to just clump them together here. The first of that is one people know pretty well, but it's always good to have the reminder of, and that's stunting trees. This is a way to keep trees from growing past a certain stage of growth so you can get a certain look, like this shorter bamboo tree I have here. And all you have to do for this is once it gets to the right stage of growth that you want, you just plant a fruit sapling adjacent to it. Like you can see I have that fruit sapling behind this bamboo tree here. It does have to be a fruit sapling, keep that in mind. It's a great way to get a little bit of diversity in the type of tree heights you get. And then this next one is how you can plant palm trees anywhere on your island. All you have to do is have the sand path from the pathline tool and just place that sand wherever you need it, and you can plant trees on top of it. This is really great if you're like me and love those tropical islands. You can put palm trees anywhere you want. Next one, this one is a classic, and that's planting trees on cliffs. For this one, you just need to get a setup like this where if you're going to plant your tree where the hole is here, then put terrain around every other space except for one corner. Then you're going to go to that level below, get out your waterscaping tool, and you're going to do just this kind of pattern right here. You're going to do 2 like that, and then a diagonal in that one section you leave empty. Next, you're going to come up here, plant your tree. Then after you do that, you can head back down and scape it however you want. You can remove any cliffs you need at this point, like this. And there you go, that tree's up on that cliff now. Just like that. And then you can fill in the water, and there you go, that tree is on a cliff, and it really shouldn't be able to. And to wrap up this tree section, the last thing we're going to talk about is stumps. These can make great stools since you can sit on them, and they can also just be really great for those natural areas if you need something a little bit different. And with the stumps, this does work with stunted trees as well. So if you want tiny stumps, you can get those as well. For this last tip, we're going to do something similar to what we did with the trees and group a couple things together, but this time we're going to do it with fences. The first of these tips is mix and match them. Like I have here, I have the stone and iron fences with the hedge fences to create a new kind of look. You can do this with different fences, just combining them, or the same color with different fences. If you do same color with different fences, they won't stick together, unfortunately, but you can still make it look quite interesting with that. Along with this, sometimes just the fences they have in the game don't cut it, and you gotta use different items instead as an alternative. Things like the wood partition, plant partition, safety railing, and log stakes are some of my favorites to use, and these can help fix a huge problem I have with the normal fences in the game, and that's that there's this giant gap between the fence and the items sometimes, and this just becomes way less of an issue with some of these smaller partition items since they have that 1.5 width, and that reduces that gap by a little bit. And lastly, if you want fences in a build but you're running out of room, there's some certain tall objects that you can place behind builds on a lower level that can create a fence effect. I like doing this with the bamboo partitions like I've done here, but there's other objects that work as well that I've used, such as swinging benches, castle items if you want something that's a little taller, and ruin arches. Alright, that's all the tips I have for today. If you enjoyed, please like and subscribe. I'm a new content creator, so any support I get is greatly appreciated. Other than that, I also want to start touring islands soon, so if you're like me wrapping up that island as the 3.0 update comes around and would like it to be toured, I'll have a form in the description. Feel free to fill it out, and I might tour your island. Otherwise, this has been Owen. Thank you for hanging out with me today, and I'll see you later. Bye.